All right, guys, what is going on? Back at it again, of course, with the latest in the Arbitrum ecosystem. Today's video is a little bit more about actually just some tweets that I thought were interesting, kind of pertain a little bit more to what's going on and what's happening in the Arbitrum ecosystem versus like actual announcements. But before we get into it, of course, remember none of this video is financial advice, and of course, everything that I say is my opinion and my opinion alone. That being said, let's jump right into it. First tweet, of course, here is by Georgios Konstantinopoulos from Paradigm. And all he says here is make L2s experiment again. And then, of course, I go ahead and comment below. We never stopped, my guy. I just wanted to kind of touch up on this a little bit. I think, and of course, I get Giorgio saying this. A lot of their portfolio companies are pretty much everything other than Arbitrum. Not to say that all the other L2s aren't experimenting or kind of pushing beyond the EVM. Pretty much just going off of replicating Ethereum, but just faster and quicker. Faster and cheaper. But more so kind of going beyond what Ethereum can do to kind of pretty much make an environment for L2s that are different than Ethereum, but also kind of help scale it from like beyond like an EVM standpoint. I think, and it's funny. I think I actually mentioned this a little while ago, but we definitely do not need any more layer twos that are just copies of the EVM. We don't. We have enough layer twos that do that, and there are a ton already out there. And I'm going to include the OP stack in this that doesn't really do anything or innovate beyond what Ethereum is. And there are a couple of other L2s out there, especially the ZK rollups, that are they definitely have different development environments, and a lot of them are kind of going after that ZK EVM moniker, trying to be as Ethereum equivalent as possible, which I think is important to a certain extent. But there's a lack of experimentation on the L2 and the L2 landscape. I agree. But I will say it's like, make L2s experiment again is a little bit disingenuous because Arbitrum Stylus is like literally the definition of experimenting. Like literally the ability to code Rust, C, C++ on an Ethereum-based chain literally has never been heard of. They tried doing it on Ethereum. It's called WASM. You can go ahead and look it up, and it failed. They were never able to do it. But we're obviously able to do it here on Arbitrum. It's not on mainnet, of course, currently on testnet, but you can actually run it yourself. It's pretty cool. We're going to talk about the next tweets kind of related to this too. And then, of course, you have a Starknet as well, who they have their own development language called Cairo. And they have obviously their own ecosystem that's kind of built using that language itself. So I definitely think that there's actually a good amount of L2s. Actually, let me rephrase that. There are L2s out there experimenting. I don't know if Paradigm invested into Starknet actually, so maybe they didn't. But what I will say is that just because your portfolio companies aren't experimenting doesn't mean that no one is experimenting. Shout out to Georgios for all that he does. I know they're working on Reth, which is kind of Rust Ethereum, like I guess a client for Ethereum written in Rust, which I'm sure is really cool. But texts like these are a little bit weird to me because it's like, dude, like just put the moniker in there and put in parentheses portfolio companies. maybe you should tell them to experiment a little more, instead of tweeting it out. Anyways, on to the next one. So I wanted to point out this tweet, and it kind of relates a little bit. We have Rachel here from Offchain Labs, and she says, among the many reasons Arbitrum Stylus uses WASM for Solana's outdated eBPF is the difference in tooling and safety. The Rust compiler on Solana only has Tier 3 support for EBF. This means less testing, assurances of correctness, or even STD support than modern technologies like WASM. I'm going to assume STD means something else. Not even sure what that means. But what I wanted to point out here, more importantly than all this kind of jargon, is what novalunis.eth says over here. He asks, is it possible to use WASM for validity proofs? And then Rachel says, yes, though the more complex the circuit, the higher the fees. So I'm more optimistic about invalidity strategies than ZK tech, puns intended. That being said, because, pretty much Arbitrum Nitro, which is kind of the current iteration of Arbitrum that, the main chains are currently running on, compiles Geth down to WASM. What we're saying here is essentially that, I guess with the support of Stylus is the assumption that someone could theoretically be able to, create an Arbitrum chain with validity proofs. I'm not sure if this is true. I should probably ask internally first. But that's kind of what I'm getting at from Rachel's response here. You see kind of the OP stack trying to experiment with this. Nothing official, literally just community members, I guess, who are interested in kind of developing validity proofs for OP stack chains. I haven't seen a ton of kind of movement on that side quite yet. But what I will say is that I think for the most part, ZK proofs, validity proofs, ZK rollups, etc., they're kind of viewed as this shiny new object that everyone kind of wants to have and like integrate, but they're still extremely inefficient, unfortunately. And I think for the most part, there's definitely going to be, I don't want to say definitely, but there may be a point where it makes more sense that there are more ZK rollups versus optimistic rollups. Both technologies I think, are relatively complex in nature. Optimistic is far more advanced currently in its current state. But I'm definitely interested to see kind of what the ZK state looks like when it kind of matures, as much as the optimistic rollup side has. And at that point too, what kind of integrations can be made between both stacks? Because there are definitely trade-offs between the two, especially right now since ZK stacks are very early in the development cycles. But that being said, I think it's pretty cool that with WASM, essentially you can do a lot with the Arbitrum stack. There was even a team, which I didn't start doing these updates until now. There was even a team that was creating an Arbitrum rollup, but that's fully encrypted. So like essentially like a privacy chain. Really cool stuff. I'll probably talk about them another day. Maybe when they make another announcement, if they're live or something like that, you guys will probably see it. But anyways, that's enough about Stylus and WASM. That was like half the episode. I wanted to talk about this comment I saw here today, or yesterday technically, from my good friend Square Jordan here. Square Jordan says, tested out Solana a bit, got a little whiff. Had my fun, then bounced over to AVAX to buy the top of some shitcoins. Now down bad, so had enough. Bridged to Injective to stake, but didn't have the funds to do much more. Then finally made my way back to ARB because home is where the heart is. This is an amazing paragraph. This is like, I'm sure this is like the story of every degenerate on crypto. You go from chain to chain bouncing around, when there's like kind of different narratives to chase. And then when you're finally had enough, when you're finally like, you know what, I'm done. I've made enough money or I've lost enough money where I just kind of want to relax, want to put my funds kind of safely away, etc. You decide to go back home, and to Square Jordan, that's Arbitrum. And I think I don't know. I read that, I'm like, a tear almost fell from my eyes just reading that. It really goes to show like how dedicated the community is, especially on Arbitrum, and of course just like how much of like a liquidity hub it is. I've seen a lot of talk on Twitter actually recently about people saying, "Oh my God, it's all this dead liquidity on Arbitrum, not doing anything," and it's like, dude, like. People put liquidity where they feel most comfortable with it. It's not dead liquidity. I mean, you could argue that, hey, maybe they should be doing, maybe they should be LPing with it, maybe they should be staking it, etc. But like at the end of the day, people will do with their capital whatever they want to do, right? For the most part, people will, I think, kind of what Square Jordan here said, will bridge from chain to chain to try to maximize their gains. But there's also a good amount of people who just want to, know that they can access their capital at any point and keep it on a chain that's like, where it's accessible, where they can use it if they need to kind of put it into action, and then just feel comfortable at the end of the day, so you can sleep at night. I think the answer to that question is a lot simpler than people think, right? Wherever they feel safest, essentially. And I think that's why Arbitrum is like literally is the liquidity hub of crypto currently. Besides Ethereum. But the thing, of course, with Ethereum is that you're going to incur an insane fee if you're going to move funds anywhere. If you're just moving ETH, then you're not going to incur that much of a fee. But if it's like multiple tokens, NFTs, etc., then moving all that stuff will end up costing you a good penny. So, anyways, I just wanted to mention that tweet by Jordan. I thought that was a great kind of like, I don't know, can I call it a haiku? Probably not. Anyways, we'll end off today, as usual. Check out the Beneath the Layers podcast, a community-focused show that I host, dedicated to showcasing entrepreneurs in Web3 and telling their stories. Recently had Jill from Espresso Systems, as well as G-Funk from Pixel Vault, and of course a ton of other people as well, including the guys who kind of created Prism, Ed Felton from Offchain Labs, and of course Amit Mahajan from Pixel Vault. Farmville. Jeez. I'm like mixing up everyone today. And for some reason I said Prism co-creators instead of Preston Van Loon and Raul Jordan. Anyways, that being said, feel free to check out the podcast when you guys want. I hope your Christmas was great, and I wish you guys a happy new year. There's going to be videos up until the new year anyways, so you'll see me tomorrow as well. Anyways, have a good one, guys. Peace out.